Nothing makes a woman wetter than a man who doesn't flinch. Yeah, you heard that right. Not the guy who chases, not the guy who texts back too fast. It's the man who can look her in the eyes and walk away without blinking. That's what gets under her skin. You see, most men don't realize this, but women carry secret desires they'll never admit. They crave things they'd never say out loud. And the more you try to please them, the less they feel that ache they're secretly looking for. Maybe right now, you're in that frustrating space. You're texting her, waiting. She left you on red. She's gone cold. You're wondering what changed. You thought being the good guy would win her over. You thought being available was attractive. You thought showing your emotions made you strong. But what if everything you've been told about women is backwards? In this video, I'm going to show you 10 hidden pleasures women feel but never confess. Psychological triggers, deep, primal switches inside her, and more importantly, how you by doing less can ignite more desire than you ever thought possible. This isn't manipulation. This is awareness. This is control. This is what Stoic men have always understood. Power isn't loud, it's silent, and that silence is exactly what makes her tremble. You've been giving too much. It's time to pull back. It's time to understand what really drives her wild. Let's get into it. Number 1. The thrill of being ignored. Let me tell you something that sounds completely backwards but is absolutely true. Women don't always want to be chosen first. They want to feel like they're chasing something just out of reach. That tension, that's what sparks desire. And nothing lights that fire faster than being ignored by the man they secretly want. Take Mark, 47, divorced, living in Denver. A good guy, stable career, decent shape. He dated a woman named Julia, 42, a fitness instructor with a wild side. In the beginning, Mark was available, always texting back within minutes, always suggesting plans, always eager. Julia liked him, but the spark didn't last. Why? Because there was no tension. No space for her to wonder, to miss him, to crave. Then something shifted. Mark got busy, really busy. Not a game, just life. He stopped texting first. He didn't respond immediately. Suddenly, Julia was the one asking if he was free, the one sending selfies at 11 p.m., the one saying, "You've been quiet lately." That's not an accident. That's psychology. When a man pulls back, not out of spite, but because he has a life, because he's focused, something primal happens. Women don't like a man who's constantly available. They may say they do, but deep down, they want a man with gravity, a man whose time feels valuable, a man they have to earn. There's a term for this: selective attention. In psychology, it's tied to perceived value. The less available something is, the more valuable it becomes. The more you flood someone with attention, the less they feel they have to work for it. That imbalance kills attraction. Now don't confuse this with playing mind games. We're not talking about ignoring her just to get a reaction. Stoicism teaches us to act from strength, not strategy. When you stop seeking validation, you naturally stop over-investing. You become the mountain still, grounded, immovable. That energy, women feel it, even when you say nothing. Think about it. When was the last time you were truly intrigued by someone who was always there, always answering, always saying yes? Probably never, because mystery matters, space matters, and silence it screams. Women have admitted this, even if they won't say it out loud. When a man stops chasing, when he chooses his peace over her drama, it creates this delicious tension. She starts to wonder what he's doing, who he's with, why he hasn't called. And suddenly, her imagination is doing all the work. Desire lives in that space. But here's the twist. She'll never admit this. She'll say, "You're cold, distant, arrogant," and yet she won't block you. She won't stop checking your status. She'll keep you in orbit because your silence speaks louder than any line you could text her. Remember, Attention is currency. Spend it wisely. If you give it away too easily, it loses all power. But when you invest it sparingly, when you make her feel like she's earning it, it becomes magnetic. That's the thrill of being ignored. It's not rejection, it's power, it's restraint, and restraint is rare. If you're watching this and thinking, I've done the opposite my whole life, you're not alone. Most men were taught to pursue, to impress, to always respond. But real attraction, lasting, burning attraction, starts when you stop giving everything away. Start giving her space to feel your absence. That's when she starts craving your presence. This might feel unnatural at first. You'll want to reach out, to explain, to clarify. But trust this, the man who can sit in silence, who can walk away with calm certainty, that's the man she never forgets. So ask yourself this: have you been making yourself too easy to reach? Comment below. I've seen this. Let's talk about what comes next. Number 2. The jealousy that turns her on. Jealousy. It's messy, it's emotional, and it's one of the most powerful psychological triggers in any relationship, especially when it comes to women. Not because they want to admit they're jealous, but because the feeling itself reveals something deeper. It exposes desire. It strips away control. And here's the part most men don't realize. Sometimes, the moment she sees you give your attention to another woman, even subtly, is the moment she starts to feel things again. She'll deny it, of course. She'll act indifferent, even annoyed. But inside, there's a storm. Jealousy reminds her that you're still wanted, still relevant, still desired by someone other than her. It creates contrast. It flips the script. You're no longer the man standing still, waiting for her. You're the man with options, the man who could walk. And that thought, that you could be emotionally or physically accessible to someone else, it hits her harder than she'll ever admit. In the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, there's a line that says, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Jealousy works because it flips that equation. Suddenly, you're no longer reacting to her. She's reacting to you. You've become the outside event she can't control, the possibility she can't predict. And in a strange twist, that loss of control is what pulls her closer. When she sees another woman laugh at your joke, compliment your presence, or simply stand beside you, she doesn't just see competition. She sees value. Your attention, which once felt guaranteed, now feels rare, scarce, earned. Scarcity changes everything. But here's the important part. This only works when it's not forced. Manufactured jealousy backfires. Posting selfies with random women, trying too hard to flaunt your status that reeks of insecurity. It looks like desperation in disguise. And women can smell that from miles away. True Stoicism doesn't chase reactions. It creates them by simply being. If you live with purpose, if you move with intention, jealousy happens as a byproduct. You're seen, not because you tried, but because you carry presence. And when others notice, she does too. And then something strange happens. She gets quiet, short replies, maybe even distant. Not because she's over it, but because she's unsure how to handle the feeling. Jalousie scramble logique. It triggers emotions rooted in competition, survival, insecurity. And for a woman who once felt like she had your full attention, watching you shift that focus even slightly feels like losing. And in that loss, attraction is reborn. But again, let me be clear, the goal is not to hurt her. It's not to manipulate. It's to remind her subtly, naturally, that you are not someone she can take for granted. When she starts to feel that itch, that restlessness, that need to check your phone, your stories, your silence, that's when the work begins. Because now, you've entered her head. You've shifted the balance. And all of this, without saying a single word. There's power in being chosen, but there's even more power in being wanted by others. Not flaunted, not advertised, just quietly observed. And when a woman sees that, it wakes something up in her. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You can't control how she reacts, but you can control your value, your movement, your energy. And when that becomes attractive to others, jealousy does the rest. So if she starts acting a little different, colder, sharper, don't panic. Smile, you've been seen. Comment below, I've felt that. Wait until you hear what comes next. Number 3. The high of losing control. There's something wild that happens when a woman finally lets go. Not emotionally, physically, mentally, fully. She loses herself, but not randomly. It only happens when the man in front of her makes it safe for her to fall apart. Not with chaos, with control. Let's take an example. David, 52, lives in Seattle. He's a quiet, solid guy, spent most of his life in corporate finance, neat apartment, morning workouts, predictable in all the best ways. Then came Angela, 46, divorced, 2 kids, strong-willed, runs her own interior design firm. On paper, they seemed too different. She was loud, he was calm. In the early dates, David would listen more than talk. He never over-explained, never tried to impress, just observed, held eye contact, let silence hang. That stillness, it got under her skin. Angela told him later that it made her feel undone. Not because of anything he did, but because of what he didn't do. He didn't rush in to fix things. He didn't fill every gap with noise. He didn't flinch when she got emotional. She said it felt like standing on a cliff with someone behind her who wouldn't let her fall, but also wouldn't stop her from jumping. That's the paradox. The more grounded you are, the more permission you give her to lose it in the best way. Women live in a world of constant performance. They manage appearances, expectations, emotions. But when they meet a man who doesn't react, who doesn't get pulled into the drama, who stays rooted, that's when the walls start to crack. That's when she lets go. Not because she's weak, but because she finally feels safe not being strong. And that release, that surrender, it's intoxicating for both of you. Here's where most men mess it up. They try to force emotional breakdowns. They think being deep means pushing her to open up. But real power doesn't push, it waits. Stoicism teaches us that mastery over self is the highest form of power. The man who can stay centered while others spiral, that man becomes a lighthouse in her storm. Angela said something to David on their 3rd month together that stuck with him. You don't even try to control me, but somehow I feel completely under your influence. That's the high. It's not about manipulation, it's about embodiment. She feels you not needing her, and that makes her want you more. She senses your stability, and that gives her permission to unravel. That contrast, it lights her up. And yes, this includes intimacy. When a woman feels mentally and emotionally unguarded, the physical part follows. Faster, deeper, more intense. Not because you talked her into it, but because she felt it was safe to let go. And in that surrender, she connects with something she hides from most of the world, her raw, unfiltered self. But don't mistake this for weakness. It takes strength to collapse, just like it takes strength to stand still while she does. So, if you're always trying to impress, always trying to entertain, always reacting, you're not giving her that space. You're filling the silence she needs in order to open up. Real attraction lives in that silence, in the pauses, in the way you breathe, hold your posture, look without speaking. She's not looking for perfection. She's looking for presence. David didn't say much, but he gave her everything that mattered. And the best part, she still doesn't know how he did it. If you've ever seen a woman fall apart in a way that made her more beautiful, more honest, more alive, you know the feeling. Comment below, I've seen this. What comes next might challenge everything you thought made you strong. Don't miss it. Number 4. The mystery she can't decode. Every man she's dated before you had a pattern. Predictable, eager, too available, too explainable. But then she meets you, and suddenly nothing adds up. You don't overshare. You don't react. You don't fill space just to keep her attention. You leave room, space, ambiguity, and that drives her mad in the best way. Women aren't drawn to chaos. They're drawn to contrast. When she can't quite figure you out, you become the question she wants to answer. The more silent you are about your inner world, the more she projects her own curiosity onto you. You become a blank page she keeps trying to write on. And the truth? She doesn't want the full answer. She wants the chase. When a man holds his ground and doesn't constantly explain himself, she starts reading deeper into everything. Your pauses, your looks, your decisions. It creates a tension because she can't predict you. And that unpredictability is attractive. This isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about being sovereign. You're not hiding. You're just not offering up your soul like a cheap sales pitch. There's a line from Seneca that cuts to the core of this. A wise man is content with himself. That contentment, that calm energy that doesn't need to be validated or understood, it's magnetic. Women sense it. They lean into it because it's rare. In a world of men constantly trying to prove themselves, the man who isn't trying stands out. She might ask more questions, try to dig. She'll notice that you don't post much, don't gossip, don't always answer with full paragraphs. You say less, but it carries more weight. And in that space, her curiosity grows. Here's what most men don't understand. When you're too easy to read, you become easy to forget. If she can predict everything you'll say, feel, or do, her brain stops engaging. Désir fade. But when you leave little gaps, unanswered questions, subtle behaviors, calm confidence, her mind does the work. And the more she thinks about you, the more attached she becomes. Let her lean in, let her wonder, and when she asks what you're thinking, smile. Not to be cryptic, but because you've trained yourself not to overshare for validation. You've learned the value of holding space instead of filling it. This creates a power dynamic not based on control, but on contrast. The more she emotes, the more still you remain. The more she analyzes, the less you offer. And it's not because you're playing a part. It's because you know your worth doesn't come from being understood. The moment she realizes she can't decode you is the moment she becomes addicted to trying. She won't say it. She'll act annoyed. She might tease you for being too calm or hard to read, but she won't stop coming back, because your mystery gives her something no predictable man ever could. Tension, depth, intrigue, and she feels it in her body, not because you tried to be mysterious, but because you chose peace over performance, because you lived your life without needing to be seen, and that made her want to see more. You become the question she can't stop asking. Even your silence becomes seductive, because it doesn't beg, it invites. Comment below. I keep them guessing. Some men chase approval. Others become the one she can't figure out and can't stop thinking about. Stay with me. Number 5. The restraint that drives her wild. There's a certain kind of man who doesn't chase, who doesn't push, who doesn't rush, and yet he's the one she remembers. The one who lingers in her thoughts long after the date is over, because he knew how to hold back. Let me tell you about Chris. He's 48, lives in Austin, runs a small but successful landscaping company, always outside, grounded, physical. He's been through a tough divorce and isn't in a hurry for another. And then came Lisa, 41, smart, confident, emotionally available, but used to men moving too fast. On their second date, things were heating up. There was wine, candlelight, that perfect tension hanging in the air. Lisa leaned in, giving the green light, but Chris didn't lean forward. He didn't kiss her. He looked her in the eye, smiled and said, Let's not rush this. That moment, she told him later, it made her stomach flip. She was used to men taking the first chance they got. But Chris? He pulled back, not out of fear, but out of power. That kind of restraint, it's rare. It's intoxicating, because it signals one thing: control. Women notice when a man can resist the obvious impulse, not because he's afraid, but because he values timing, connection, and energy. He's not withholding as a tactic. He's patient because he's secure. Lisa said the rest of that night, she couldn't stop thinking about what might happen next. The kiss that didn't come, the moment that hung in the air. It built anticipation, and that anticipation became obsession. Stoicism talks about this in a different language. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Mastery of self is the foundation of freedom, and freedom is magnetic." The man who isn't ruled by impulse, who chooses intention over reaction, that man becomes unforgettable. When a woman sees a man holding back not because he's shy, but because he's disciplined, it changes everything. It flips the script. She's no longer deciding how far things go. She's reacting to his pace, his energy, his rhythm. And suddenly, she's chasing something she never expected: stillness. Chris and Lisa ended up dating for almost a year. And she said the first kiss, when it finally happened, was more powerful than any she'd had in the past decade. Because it came after the wait, after the build-up, after the restraint. Restraint doesn't mean avoidance. It means confidence. The ability to know you could, but choosing not to. That choice tells her she's not in control of your reactions. And oddly enough, that makes her feel more alive. Too many men confuse desire with action. But what drives most women wild isn't just what you do. It's what you don't do, what you hold back, what you let simmer just below the surface. Chris didn't need to prove anything. He didn't play hard to get. He was just grounded in his own energy. And that space he created, it let Lisa step into her own desire. That's the trick. You don't rush it. You don't chase. You don't fill silence out of fear she'll lose interest. You hold. You breathe. You trust that your restraint is more powerful than any clever line or fast move. And that restraint doesn't repel her, it pulls her in. Comment below. I held back, and what's coming next? Let's just say it's where everything gets turned upside down. You'll want to hear this. Number 6. The way you undress her mind. Men often think seduction starts with a look, a touch, or a clever line. But if you've really been with a woman, mind, body, soul, you know this. The real power lives in how you reach her thoughts. And she'll never say it out loud, but what turns her on most is when you see past her smile, her tone, her front, and speak directly to the woman behind all that. The one she hides from the world. That's the secret. Most men are so eager to impress that they talk over her emotions. They hear the surface, not the signal. But you notice the pause before she answers, the flicker in her eyes when she talks about her past. You hear what she's not saying, and you don't try to fix it. You just hold it, like it matters. And in that space, something unravels. Not her clothes, her walls. You make her feel seen. And not for her looks or how she dresses, but for her inner world. That messy, layered, beautiful chaos she doesn't show anyone unless it feels safe. This is how you undress her mind. It doesn't require poetry or grand gestures, just attention, presence, depth. The ability to sit with her truth, without judgment, without performance. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That kind of listening, pure, still, without an agenda, has more seductive power than anything you could say. Because when she feels understood, when she feels like you actually hear her, she stops performing. She drops the role she usually plays. And that moment when she exhales and just is, that's where real intimacy begins. Here's what most guys get wrong. They think mental connection means solving her problems, offering advice, showing how smart they are. But that's not what she wants. She wants to feel felt. She wants to look into your eyes and know you're not calculating your next move. You're just there, fully. That mental undressing, it happens slowly. It's not forced. It's earned through patience, stillness, respect. You don't need to pry her open. You just need to stop talking long enough for her to open herself. And when she does, when she tells you something raw, unfiltered, you don't flinch. You don't rescue her. You sit with it. You honor it. Because you know this truth. If you can hold her mind, her body follows. A woman who feels mentally safe becomes physically uninhibited, not out of pressure, but out of trust. And that trust, that's what separates a forgettable man from the one she dreams about when she's alone. Most men want access, but the man who earns her trust, who waits, listens, sees he doesn't just get her body, he gets everything. This is why some women can't stop thinking about a guy they never even touched, because he touched something deeper, something almost no one else even notices. That's the difference between charm and depth. Charm faders, depth lingers. So if you want to undress her mind, start with attention. Start with silence. Start by showing her you're not in a rush to consume her. You're here to witness her. It's in the way you lean in without needing to speak. The way you ask a question, then really listen. The way you hold eye contact, not to dominate, but to say, I'm here, I see you, and I can handle all of it. And when she feels that, when she knows you can sit in the storm of her without retreating, she opens in ways she never has before. That's not a technique, that's presence, and it's unforgettable. Comment below, I see deeper. There's a part of her you haven't met yet, and when you do, everything changes. Don't go anywhere. Number 7. The hunger for rare attention. There's a type of attention that doesn't come often, the kind that isn't loud, desperate, or performative. It's subtle, sharp, and focused. And when a man gives that kind of attention, it leaves a mark. Take Jordan. He's 42. A quiet, sharp-witted guy from Denver who works in commercial architecture. He's not flashy, not overly charming, but he pays attention, and that's what sets him apart. He met Claire, 38, divorced, 2 kids, emotionally guarded but craving connection. On the surface, she's got it together, but deep down, she's been starving for something real. On their first coffee date, Claire expected the usual small talk. What she got instead was different. Jordan wasn't trying to entertain or impress. He simply watched her, listened fully, and asked questions that made her pause. Not because they were clever, but because they were rare. He noticed things most men don't. The way she hesitated before answering questions about her ex, how her tone changed when she mentioned her kids. He didn't interrupt, he didn't fill silence. He leaned in when she leaned back. That attention? It wasn't about attraction, it was about presence. And for Claire, it hit deep. You see, most women are used to being seen in parts, body, status, utility. But when a man sees the whole woman, and not just when he wants something, it unlocks a hunger she didn't even know she had. This kind of attention is rare. That's why it's so powerful. Jordan didn't follow up with a dozen texts. He didn't flood her with compliments. He just let the moment speak. He gave her something to think about, something to feel long after the date ended. That kind of energy is unforgettable. And here's what's wild. Jordan never called himself stoic, but his behavior, pure stoicism. Calm, intentional, present. As Seneca said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. But not the kind of kindness that's transactional, the kind that's patient, observant, rare. In a world where everyone's trying to outshine, outshout, outseduce each other, the man who simply sees, who listens, who's still, that man becomes magnetic. And Claire? She said that date replayed in her head for weeks. Not because Jordan said anything spectacular, but because he saw her, fully, clearly, quietly. Here's the truth. Women crave this kind of attention because it's the opposite of what they're used to. They're used to men rushing to get to the end. But when a man slows down, when he's not trying to win her but to witness her, everything changes. She starts leaning in, remembering details, playing back moments in her mind. Because the hunger wasn't just for love or sex, it was for recognition, for presence. Jordan didn't just make Claire feel special, he made her feel rare. And when a woman feels rare in a man's presence, she'll crave that presence over and over. That's why real attention is seductive, because it doesn't demand, it reveals. So next time you're with her, stop performing, stop trying to impress. Be like Jordan. Slow down, watch, listen. Let your attention do what no compliment ever could. Even in a room full of people, a woman can feel invisible. But one man's quiet attention can make her feel like she's the only one who exists. That's the kind of impact you want to have, because that's what she remembers. Long after the date, long after the kiss, long after she forgets every guy who tried too hard. Comment below. I give rare attention. What happens when she gets that kind of attention and then suddenly loses it? You'll want to hear this next part. Number 8. The fear of being replaced. It's something she'll never admit out loud, but she feels it deeply. The fear of being replaced. No matter how confident she seems, no matter how secure she appears in her own skin, there's a voice inside that whispers, "What if he stops choosing me?" And here's the twist. This fear doesn't come from you being disrespectful or distant. It comes from your calm, your self-sufficiency, your refusal to chase. Because when a man is grounded, stable, and unbothered, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability, when handled right, breeds desire. You're not cruel, you're not cold, but you're not available on demand either. You have your life, your mission, your peace. And when she sees that you're not clinging, not asking for validation, not building your worth around her approval, that's when the fear kicks in. It's subtle, it's primal, it's that tension between "I want to be wanted" and "he might not need me." Here's where most men mess it up. They sense this fear in her and try to fix it, reassure her, prove their loyalty. But what they're really doing is killing the attraction. Because part of what keeps her magnetized is the fact that you're not trying to keep her. You're simply being you and letting her decide if she can match your energy. This isn't about playing games. It's about living in your truth. And your truth says, "I don't fear loss. I don't fear walking alone. I won't compete for attention that should be freely given." That's what shakes her. She's used to men bending, apologizing, clinging. She's not used to a man who can hold eye contact and say, "If you want to go, I won't stop you." Not with anger, not with ego, but with quiet conviction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." When you live by that, you stop trying to control outcomes. You stop chasing reassurance. You embody what most men fake, detachment rooted in strength. And women feel that. It's not indifference, it's integrity. The fear of being replaced doesn't mean she's insecure. It means she's human. It means she senses something powerful in you, something rare. She can't quite hold it. She can't predict it. And that makes her want it even more. But here's the key. You never use that fear against her. You never manipulate it. You never try to stir it up just to feel powerful. You let her sit with it. You let her wrestle with it. Because in that wrestling, something grows: respect. She may test you. She may pull away to see if you'll chase. She may get emotional. But you stay grounded, centered, stoic. Because that's what a real man does. He doesn't flinch in the face of emotional storms. He doesn't collapse under the weight of her moods. He remains who he island, and that consistency, that is what keeps you unforgettable. So no, don't fear her fear. Don't try to soften it. Let it do its job. Because sometimes The fear of being replaced reminds her just how valuable you are. It reminds her that you're not like the rest, that you won't beg, that you won't break character just to ease her tension. You are the constant in her chaos, the unmoving presence she can't shake. And in a world full of men who chase, you become the one she chases. Comment below. I hold my ground. If she starts chasing you, what happens when she hits resistance? The answer might surprise you. Stay with me. Number 9. The obsession with what's unshaken. There's something that gets under her skin and stays there. It's not your looks, not your charm, not even your intelligence. It's your steadiness. When a man moves through life like nothing outside of him can disturb his core, it triggers something deep in a woman. A kind of obsession, not with dominance, but with consistency, with strength she can't shake. Let me tell you about Mike. He's 51, divorced, runs his own business, lives in a quiet suburb in Oregon. He's not flashy, doesn't talk much, but when he does, people listen, especially women. He met Naomi at a mutual friend's barbecue. She's 45, a corporate consultant who's used to being the one in control, smart, direct, fast-talking. She's dated all kinds of men, confident ones, wealthy ones, charismatic ones. But Mike? He didn't bite. When she teased, he didn't flinch. When she flirted, he smiled but didn't chase. When she challenged him, he didn't argue, he paused. He didn't need to prove himself. He didn't get rattled. He stayed calm, grounded, like a tree in the middle of a storm. And that shook her more than any argument ever could. You see, when a woman meets a man who won't get pulled into her emotional swings, who won't mirror her anxieties or react to her provocations, she feels something rare, safe but excited, held but not controlled. It's a strange paradox. The more unshaken you are, the more intensely she feels, because it forces her to confront her own energy. Mike didn't resist her, he just didn't absorb her chaos. He wasn't cold, he was present, not reactive, just there, solid. And after that first meeting, Naomi couldn't stop thinking about him. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say, and what he didn't do. He didn't try to win her. He didn't perform. He didn't lean in. He just existed with gravity. That gravity pulls a woman in, and the more she tests it, the more obsessed she becomes. Because deep down, every woman wants to know, can this man handle me without losing himself? Most men crumble under pressure. They apologize for things they didn't do. They chase validation. They flinch at silence. But not the grounded man, the man who lives by the words of Epictetus. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. That's the Stoic way, and it's magnetic. Mike doesn't get angry. He doesn't defend. He doesn't explain. He lets others feel what they feel and stays rooted in who he island. And when Naomi came at him with her usual push-pull, trying to throw him off balance, he simply smiled, listened, responded but never reacted. And that broke the loop. She wasn't in control anymore. She didn't have the upper hand, and that drove her crazy in the best way. Because suddenly, she was the one leaning in. She was the one wondering. She was the one who couldn't get enough. Not because he made her feel chaste, but because he made her feel steady. Like she could let go of control and still be safe. That's obsession. Not built on drama, but built on presence. You become the man she thinks about before she sleeps. Not because you said the right things, but because you stayed right with yourself. That's what she remembers. That's what she wants more of. Not the man who gives her a high, but the man who keeps her grounded, even when her emotions want chaos. Comment below. I stay steady. What happens when that obsession reaches its peak, when the calm becomes irresistible? You're about to find out. Number 10. The craving for what's forbidden. There's a certain kind of desire that doesn't come from pleasure. It comes from denial. It's not about what you offer her. It's about what you don't. And nothing drives deeper into a woman's psyche than something she's drawn to, but can't fully have. We're talking about the forbidden, the unattainable, the man who is close, but not completely available, emotionally present, but still out of reach. You see, when something is easy to access, it's easy to forget. But when something feels slightly out of bounds, when it almost touches the line but never crosses it, it becomes unforgettable. That's what creates the craving. Not just because it's erotic, but because it speaks to something primal. Throughout her life, she's been told what's acceptable, what's proper, what she should want. But inside her, there's another voice, one that whispers, what if you didn't follow the rules? You, as a grounded man, become the personification of that whisper, not because you're reckless, but because you live by your own code. You don't give her full access, not out of manipulation, but out of sovereignty. You don't need her attention, you don't need her approval. You're not emotionally flammable, you're just untouchable, in the best way. And that, to her, feels dangerous. It also feels impossible to ignore. She craves what feels slightly off limits, because chasing it lets her step outside of who she thinks she's supposed to be. And that's where you come in. You don't make her feel bad, you make her feel alive. You don't break boundaries, you just live outside the ones she built for herself. And in that space, she gets to play with power. Not just your power, her own. Because being around you reminds her she can want more. More depth, more freedom, more danger. Not physical danger, but psychological. The risk of letting go of control. That's where real desire is born. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And when her thoughts are filled with you, your calm, your presence, your mystery, her emotions start to follow. She starts imagining, obsessing, needing. And not because you gave her something, but because you didn't. That's the paradox. You are the man who doesn't chase, doesn't expose everything, doesn't reveal his full hand. You are the man who lets her guess, wonder, feel, and question. And in doing that, you stir up the deepest parts of her femininity. Because what's forbidden isn't always about morals or rules. Sometimes it's about the emotional distance she can't quite cross, the part of you she can't own, the piece of your soul you never hand over. You're not teasing her, you're just whole. And being whole makes you a mystery. She doesn't want a man she can figure out in one conversation. She wants someone layered, someone she keeps discovering. And when she realizes she can't fully get you, that's when she starts craving you. Not for a moment, for good. So no, you don't need to say something outrageous. You don't need to be someone you're not. You just need to live in truth, in calm, in strength. And that truth, when it brushes up against her hunger for something different, that's where the craving begins. Comment below. I own my mystery. You've just seen what most men never notice. The hidden desires, the secret cravings, and the untold psychology behind what truly pulls a woman in. And if you've watched this far, you're not like most men. You're intentional, you're focused, and whether you realize it or not, you're walking the Stoic path. Remember, true attraction isn't built on trying harder. It's built on becoming unshaken, clear, whole. The more you understand how women are wired, the less you need to impress, and the more powerful your presence becomes. So, if this video sparked something in you, stick around. There's more to come, and it only gets deeper from here. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. And as always, thank you for being here. See you tomorrow.